Trustee Pat Proctor. Pat has been a lifetime of service. He enlisted in private in the Army in 1989 and retired as a colonel in July of last year. He served 2 tours in Iraq and 1 in Afghanistan. Since leaving the Army, he has continued to serve through his church and service organizations here in Leavenworth. Pat is also a business owner with his wife, Ari. He owns a Bon Thai restaurant with locations in Leavenworth and in Manhattan. Finally, Pat is an educator. He teaches as an assistant professor in the Homeland Security program at Wichita State University. And Pat, would you kind of address the first constitutional amendment?
Absolutely.
Thank you for being here.
So first of all, I just want to thank the Leavenworth County Republican Women. I look around this room, everybody in this room has in some way gotten me to where I am serving you as your state representative, whether it was knocking doors or passing out lid or helping put out signs or financial support. Thank you to everybody in this room. I'm humbled to have your support and your trust to serve you. I'm going to talk very quickly about the Second Amendment that's on the ballot this November 8th. When I was running to serve you in my first election, we were in the midst of COVID. And you might have remembered me saying, because I said it about 1 million times, including on the front lawn of the Capitol, when we were demanding that they put the governor in check, that I believe in 2 fundamental principles in us being a self-governing nation and self-governing state. The first principle is that decisions should be made by elected officials, not by unelected bureaucrats. The second principle is that no elected official should have absolute power in any realm. There should be checks and balances on every elected official. And that's exactly what this amendment is about. That's what the sheriff's amendment's about too. It's about elected officials accountable to the people. But this other amendment is to address a problem. It's a problem nationally, but it's also a problem at the state level. If a state bureaucrat doesn't like a law that's passed by your elected officials and either signed by the governor or passed over her veto, which seems to be the way we do a lot of things recently, then they can just regulate the law out of existence. There was an example that was put before us of how the Department of Labor changed the law through a regulation to make it many times more expensive for employers to get unemployment, to get workman's comp insurance for their businesses. Really making this a worse place to do business after the legislature had already passed a law to try to make this a better place to do business. I just was, with a lot of help from my fellow legislators, was able to get past the Historic Kansas Act, which creates incentives for folks to invest in our historic downtown. Well, if the Department of Revenue doesn't want to lose that revenue, they can, with the stroke of a pen, nullify my bill that we got passed by making it so hard to get the tax break that people don't mess with it. The Department of Health and Environment, which we all love after 2 years of COVID restrictions, they can, they could tomorrow decide that the COVID vaccine was mandatory for kids to go to school. They could do that if they wanted to do that. And right now, there's no legislative recourse. We have a committee that theoretically has oversight over all of these departments of unelected bureaucrats, but they can't, if they don't like a regulation and they tell the secretary of that department, I don't like that regulation, get rid of it, he can thumb his nose at it. Because that committee has no authority to override that regulation. What this amendment does, if you vote yes, is it gives the people, through their elected representatives in the legislature, the power to strike down regulations that these unelected bureaucrats pass. It's a check on the executive branch. Because right now, the way the Constitution is written, if the governor's government, her executive branch passes a regulation that we don't like, the only thing that we can do is go through the entire process of a bill which costs tens of thousands of dollars of taxpayer money, and at the end of the day, she can veto it anyways. So this creates a check on the executive branch. Just as I said, every elected official should have a check on their power, and we shouldn't be letting unelected bureaucrats make important decisions that impact all of our lives. So I encourage you to vote yes on that. And I can talk about that if you got questions after. I'd be happy to answer questions. The other thing that I wanted to talk about today, because I got thrown kind of a curveball there with the amendment, the thing I wanted to talk about today was education and what's going on in our schools. If you don't believe that our schools are being politicized and that our kids are being indoctrinated, I encourage you to go to a school board meeting. I encourage you to go to a school board meeting or watch them on YouTube if you can't go. We're busy, we got busy lives. Watch on YouTube the parents coming up to our school board, coming up to the podium during public comment at our school board meetings, talking about the things that their kids are coming home with. It's really shocking. It really is. We have a great opportunity right now, an historic opportunity that might not come again to fix this, to change this. First of all, we've got some great school board candidates that are running for the state school board to go up there. If we get all these folks elected, we're going to be 50-50 up there in the school board between conservatives and Democrats. And they're going to have to fight to do the things that they've been doing invisibly. Plugging in all this social emotional learning and critical race theory into our state curriculum so that local school boards have no choice but to add these things to their curriculum. We have the chance to fix that. Governor Schmidt, or I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Attorney General Schmidt, who's going to be our next governor, has said that if he's elected, he wants the legislature to send him in the first 100 days a Parents' Bill of Rights. And so we've got to get him elected. Got to get him elected. The Parents' Bill of Rights is, you could tell that we had hit the mark because, the teachers' unions and the school administrators were screaming bloody murder about it. We were all getting 50 emails a day about why we shouldn't do it. It's going to be the end of civilization if we pass this thing. It was 13 simple principles that, they're things that all of us could agree on. You should have the right to see what your kids are learning in school. You should have the right to say yes or no before your school administers a medical treatment to your child without your knowledge. You should be able to, if your kid shows up at school one day and decides that they want to change their pronouns and want to be called by a different name, you have the right to know that. This is self-evident stuff. And they're fighting it because it goes right to the heart of what they've been doing under the radar and invisibly for so long. We all have busy lives. We don't have time to sit in all the school board meetings. We don't have time to watch all the school board meetings on YouTube. And, the school board members, for a long time, we're starting to get some great conservatives in there, but for a long time, the administrators were just ramming things through, giving them 2 days to look at it before they had to vote on it, and just pushing things through. And, while we weren't paying attention, they took over our schools. They took over our schools and they're indoctrinating our kids. We have got to get politics out of our schools. Our kids need to be learning reading, writing, and arithmetic, not pronouns. Yes. Really quick, another thing that we were not able to get past this time because the governor vetoed it, that I'm praying that Attorney General Schmitz elected and we get him in office and we can get it passed, is this fairness in women's sports. The party that wags their fingers at us and says, follow the science, when they're trying to make us have medical treatments against our will and wear these ridiculous face masks, is the same party that ignores science. You know, I mean, you look at the picture of Leah Thomas. Tell me that biological male did not have an unfair advantage against all of those biological females competing in that swimming tournament. I mean, come on. It's not even science, it's common darn sense. So, you know, we got it passed, we sent it to the governor, and then we weren't able to override the veto by only 3 votes. So if we get Attorney General Schmidt in as our governor, we're gonna be able to get that done for Kansas women and girls. So with that, I got about 1 billion questions. So I'm going to start here. Just you raise your hand first. I'll get to you next, Rachel. I'm sorry.
This isn't a question. They are going to instigate in California classes in Marxism in school, and they are mandatory. So if it starts in California, it will come to a school near you in Kansas.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's in our schools now in the form of this critical race theory nonsense.
Yep.
You know, you go. I encourage everybody, go see our schools. Go into the high school. Go to the library. It will curl your hair. I mean, it will shock you to your core. It isn't hidden. You don't have to search through the shelves in the back of the stacks to find it. It's on big placards out there for everybody. This woke nonsense. They're trying to indoctrinate our kids. We got to take our schools back. Yes, ma'am.
No, they're not trying, they're succeeding. So back on the constitutional amendment. So if I want to explain this to a neighbor, nice and simple and short, if we vote yes, that will allow checks and balances on the executive branch by
allowing the legislature the power to strike down regulations made by bureaucrats.
Okay, so she says, I decided to lock down the entire state because I feel like it, and I'm doing this for the good of the people. And everybody, is out of a job or whatever.
Yeah.
The legislature can then come in and basically veto her executive order.
Yeah.
is what it
So
comes down to.
we already fixed the executive order problem. My first session last year by the changes that we made to the Emergency Management Act. We fixed the executive order problem already. We've given the legislature. We have given the legislature veto power over executive orders.
But this will.
This is if the Kansas Department of Health and Environment tomorrow made a regulation
So
that.
an unelected person
Yeah,
then makes
exactly.
a rule, you can then veto that.
Exactly, yeah.
Got it,
yeah.
that's the short answer.
Yeah.
Perfect, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
That I can explain.
I was under the impression that any rules and regs had to go through the Attorney General's office to get approval. And is she bypassing him also?
The process is completely broken. They are still having to submit to the Attorney General's office, like this is what the regulation is going to do. But the Attorney General's office only real power is to look at the regulation and see if it violates the Constitution, if it's within the authority of that agency. They don't have the authority to tell them look, this does not meet the legislative intent. You can't have that regulation. They've got very strict kind of guidelines on what grounds they are able to strike down a regulation. And frankly, the Attorney General, I don't want the Kansas Attorney General looking at every regulation that the umpteen, departments pass. I want him suing Joe Biden. So, I think it more rightly should rest with the representatives of the people in the legislature, because they're the ones that pass the law, and the regulations are how to implement the law.
The rules could be just changed within the office, but regulations should be overseen by, is that what you're saying? The regulations should be overseen by the legislature, but rules can be just changed automatically?
It's a bit semantic, but it really gives the legislature the power over rules and regulations. Anything that is passed by an executive branch department.
Okay, I do have a follow-up.
Yes.
What do you think Dennis Pyle's decision to run in the governor's race will have on just trying to get Republicans out to
Yeah.
vote for Derek Schmidt and not Dennis Pyle?
Okay, thank you for that question. There is only one person that you can vote for on November 8th that will remove Governor Kelly from office, and it ain't Dennis Pyle.
That's
A
right.
vote for Dennis Pyle is a vote for Governor Kelly.
That's right.
Okay, I am deeply disappointed in my legislative colleague Dennis Pyle. This is just, he's trying to burn it down. He's mad at a few Republicans in the Senate leadership, and so he's gonna burn it all down to punish us all. It's the most nihilistic, disappointing thing I've ever seen the man do.
Do you think,
So I'm sorry.
do you think there's any chance he'll?
There's zero chance that Dennis Pyle wins. There is a significant chance that Dennis Pyle keeps Derek Schmidt from becoming governor and gives us 4 more years of Laura Kelly.
But do you think maybe he might come to his senses and withdraw?
He can't, he's on the ballot now. He can't get off the ballot now. He's on the ballot.
Congressman Jacob Turner says that 80% of the people signing the petition for Pyle were Democrats.
Yeah.
If you go look at the funding, he's being funded by Democrats.
Yeah. My colleague on the other side of the aisle, Representative Vic Miller, some of the folks who serve in the legislature know who I'm talking about because he's been in the legislature since God was a corporal. But he's a Democrat, and he put on NRA gear and stood outside a gun show with a petition and got Republican signatures to put Dennis Pyle on the ballot. Because they knew that if Dennis Pyle got on the ballot and we voted for him, or a tiny percentage of us voted for him, it would ruin our chances of finally getting rid of Governor Kelly. So I urge you, just ignore this guy. He cannot win, and he's just trying to burn it all down. He knows exactly what he's doing.
And every one of us should email, call, and write Pyle and say, please, step out of the race. Make sure
Yeah.
he's on the ballot.
He can endorse, yeah, he can endorse, but I wish he were susceptible to common sense. I wish he were, but he's just not. Rescue me, Linda, please.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you.